So, today we're going to be talking about the top 10 cards of this year. We are going to do top 10 cards that were released this year that impacted the formats this year. So there are going to be some cards that we will do. We've got an honorable mention category we're going to do at the end, but there are going to be some cards that were released this year that are insanely strong, but won't make the list because they didn't impact the current formats of this year. You think that's fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Yeah, like not all these cards are super relevant right now, but for, you know, this
Months
year
at
as
a
a
time.
whole,
Yeah.
like they definitely impacted from January forward.
And our honorable mentions category 2 is for like cards that are insane that were released this year, but we think didn't really see as much of an impact on the formats this year as other cards that may not be quite as strong as the honorable mentions.
Also, a lot of the cards, like if we're doing like tier element cards, for example, we're only doing like one card for the archetype. We're not going to sit and list you every tier element card.
Yeah, we just picked like what we thought was like probably the best card in each archetype or whatever, you know, category.
If not for that, there would be a lot of sprite cards,
Yeah.
tier element cards.
5 sprite cards, 5 tier cards.
We're
There's
done.
your list.
Yeah.
But starting off from number 10, we think was top 10 most impactful cards of the season was probably Fenrir. And a lot of people probably won't agree with that because Fenrir is such a strong, powerful card, but like it came out so late in the year that it's just not as impactful as it could have been.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, you could just see from its price point too, like it has future applications, but also it's like probably the most expensive ultra rare that we've had since like years.
Yeah, forever.
Well, the next one, my favorite card on the list, is Advent. Advent of Adventure. We don't think that this is necessarily one of the most powerful cards this year, but since it released, it took the deck, Flandres, from like okay, but not really played or didn't really top much before it released to being in the top cut of every single event since, and still relevant in a pretty much tier 0 format. Yep. And without Advent, that wouldn't really be possible. So we wanted to put that on the list at number 9 because it's not like a super impactful card other than it has kept that deck really relevant.
Yeah, I think it pretty much carries the Flandres deck. Like, it added the consistency that the deck needed. It, you know, allows it to dodge the hand traps that it lost to it before, Effect Veiler, Imperm, stuff like that. And it just brings the archetype to a whole. And like, ever since like the card released, it's pretty much been a top contending deck since then.
Yep. It gives the deck everything it needed to be a meta contender that it wasn't before. So I think it's deserving the top 10. Going on is the Bestial cards, specifically Magma Hut. They're just insane. I think it'd be way higher on the list if it came out earlier in the year or Tier and all came in early in the year. But I also think that if Tier wasn't the best deck of the format, it also probably wouldn't even be on the list. The card's insane itself, but if dark decks weren't taking over the format right now, I don't think it'd be as powerful.
Yeah, Magnum Mud's crazy, especially in Dragon decks, like being able to search any Dragon. That's why we put it. Like, that's the card we wanted to highlight. Like, Lebellion's really good, Druish Warren's really good, but without Magnum Mud, I don't think either one of those cards would be nearly as powerful as they are.
Agreed.
The next one is Xiamen.
I miss punk cards, bro. I miss punks.
I think this card people have kind of forgot about, you know, since it's got, you know, Hulk banned, it's got Chaos Ruler banned. You know, it not only was it played in the Brave Adventure decks, but also it was played in Tier Element, you know, right when Tier Element were released as well before they banned all those cards. So
yep.
I think Xiamen was one of those powerful cards, at least tutor monsters that we've seen in a long time, that weren't like one of the older ones that Hulk abused. It was one that got you into Hulk.
Yep.
Got you a lot of advantage.
Yeah, just the whole time period is like the first 3 or 4 months that it came out is just, I think it was probably the first month it came out, 2 months ago. People didn't even play it.
Yeah, because they were missing Deer Note.
Yeah, and then Deer Note came out and it just changed everything. And it wasn't like Deer Note was the best card. It was just, it gave it everything it needed to change almost every single deck in the format into a Hulk abuser.
Yeah, I mean, it just gave it the level 5, right? Like, being able to summon a level 5 and being able to make Chaos Ruler was just super strong.
Yeah, punk cards are really fun. I kind of miss playing them, but Hulk can rot now. And then we got Branded Fusion, which I think is one of the best spell cards ever printed. Like, the card is just insane. It's surprising that the deck isn't doing as good now as it could be. I think if the Shizu cards weren't here, the deck would probably be top 3 best decks. Like, Branded Fusion itself is just insane. It's all fusion, but better.
Yeah, like, Branded Fusion, you guys know how I feel about that card. I love the card to death. I think that it was one of the before Branded Fusion was printed, we didn't really see Fusion decks doing that well. Outside of what Invoked, like Dogmatica Invoked, and like the DP. But DP really was a link deck with Anaconda. But Branded Fusion really just changed where before Branded Fusion was printed, every deck was playing Brave, and then Branded Fusion came out and everybody's like, wait a minute, this deck's just good enough that you don't even need the Brave. So Branded Fusion's just crazy card.
You didn't get to play a lot during the Branded Fusion format.
I missed that. I missed a couple of these cards because they were more towards the start of this year when I wasn't around. I wasn't around until a little bit after Nats this year, which was a complete format shift, pretty much.
Yeah.
But Branded Fusion just took, Structure Deck came out and it took the whole format in its hands. Just took over. So I think this card definitely deserving here. And then our number 5 slot is Keldo and Ishizu in general. You could say this could be higher, but because they have the start of this Tier 0 format, but they wouldn't really be a Tier 0 format if Tier Element cards weren't in it.
Yeah, for sure.
The Ishizu cards made it a Tier 0 format, but without the Tier Element cards, which were a Tier 1 deck in the rest of the format. The format before and the format before that. It's a
lot of people considered it the best deck even before the Ishizu cards.
Exactly, which is it made them that much. It made Tier that much better, but it didn't make Tier. Which is I think why we needed to put that below Tier.
Yeah, I also think that the Ishizu cards were really powerful, but the format was almost a 2-deck format before.
Anyway.
Yeah. They just kind of pushed out the Sprite cards as much. Our next on the list, probably one of the most dominant engines that we've seen since Zodiac.
Since
probably.
ever.
Riot of Amasir.
Yeah, Brave engines or adventure cards, whatever you want to call them, I love the engine, man. I'm just playing it it's not the strongest right now, but regardless of how suppressed people say it is, or oppressed, or whatever the word is. Oppressive. The engine itself is just amazing. It's so fun to play with.
It's really good, and it's an engine that is very recursive and puts a lot of pressure on your opponent, but it's not an engine that completely locks down your opponent 100% of the time. You can out it. It's more fair, quote unquote fair, than a lot of things that we see. So I think that it's a really good engine.
Yeah, and I think it changed a lot. Look at what it did to Prank Kids. Prank Kids were terrible. Maybe Tier 2, and then Brave came out, and it's best deck. Just immediately shot up to the best deck in the format.
And then you had it create, literally the Brave engine by itself created new decks.
Yeah.
All the Red Rose decks.
Brave Punks.
It got Red Rose hit to 1, even though before, Red Rose was barely even talked about ever.
Yeah. You had people like Cody playing decks that were just 3 engines. You're just playing Hand Traps, Brave, and Rose Dragons.
You could literally open Right and a bunch of Hand Traps and just win the game with those cards alone.
Full combo, 3-4 negates, and you're good to go.
Absolutely insane.
Yep.
I think the rest of the list is current format cards.
It's kind of given.
Yeah.
Starting with our number 3 cards, Kit Close. Tier Element cards are just in general, it's my favorite deck ever. The deck's just fun. I'm tired of the deck. I think it's time for it to go, but the deck's just so fun. And Kit Close, just being able to add any card to your deck or fuse on your, whenever you summon it or mill 5 cards, all of that's just all in one card is just insane.
It could even arguably be higher, to be honest.
Yeah.
2 and 3, I think, are pretty interchangeable, but I think 1's pretty solidified.
Yeah, one's number easy, good.
And Kit Close also is used in other decks.
Yep.
People use it whether it be in the Fountain, the Runic deck. They use it in the Runic deck. They use it in just as a super poly target, 4 tier. It's used in more than just tier.
Just to get your Runic cards in the graveyard, that was huge too. Shout out Elijah.
Yeah, Elijah was doing it with milling 8 cards or whatever with Kit.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an insane card by itself, but it also makes the deck.
Yeah, dumping it off Galdagara to mill 5.
Yeah.
Too.
That was kind of cool. I like that.
Yep. Card's crazy.
So number 2 on the list, we had to put Elf. We put Elf above Kit because, like I just said, Kit was used in a lot of other decks, but Elf was widely used.
Elf is used in every deck.
In every deck.
There's no reason not to play Elf.
If you play a 2, you play Elf.
Yeah, exactly, because you can bring the 2 back and you just can't target the cards. That's why cards it's an honorable mention, Ultimate Slayer, is just not as strong right now because you just can't be targeted.
Yep.
Elf is just an insane card.
Elf's
I wouldn't be
insane.
surprised if we got banned
It
one day.
also helps you dodge like magma huts. It helps you dodge DD crows. It helps you dodge a lot of things from the grave. It helps you link climb. It helps it's untargetable. Like it's a crazy card, and by far the best card in.
Yeah, the only flaw with the
deck.
card is it can't be linked.
Yeah, like I think that Elf is like people were talking about like right before the Shizu cards came out that people were talking about Elf needed to be hit to 1 or even maybe even banned.
Yep.
I think it's a possibility that could happen. I think the card's extremely powerful, and I think it definitely deserves to be on the list. But
agree.
our number one is the Dark Charmer.
Dark Charmer, 100%. Like, people don't even think about it because it's just a Charmer card, but this card did so much. Like, this year would be, in my opinion, completely different in a lot of formats if Dark Charmer wasn't a thing.
At the beginning of the year, it was DPE wars with Dark, and then it like shifted into like stealing like branded cards. Then you were stealing like there any time that there's Dark is the most popular attribute in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
And the fact that you have a generic card that just lets you reborn one of your opponent's Dark Monsters is just insane.
Dark will probably be an extra deck stable for the rest of the game, like forever, because there's always some kind of Dark Monster attribute being played in the game, and Dark will always be played.
Like I think that cards like Elf are currently right now more broken and more impactful than Dark, but Dark overall has been more impactful for the year, I think, and it's going to be in the future a lot more impactful than these other cards. After the archetypes die, after Tier dies, after Sprite dies, Dark will be there to just still doing exactly what it's done this year.
Yeah, like another thing with Dark is like it got released at the very beginning of the year, and it's still an extra deck staple at the end of the year, and I think that like
It
speaks.
probably will be for 2 or 3 more
miles.
years,
That's
at
like
least.
that's the reason we put Right and stuff. Like Right was really dominant at the beginning of the year, right, but it kind of fell off. But like Dark is just like, okay, we have the DPE format, we have the branded format, we have this current format still really good. The Sprite format was really good. Like it's just going to be good until it gets
Dark is
banned
just
or
everything
whatever.
you need out of a Link monster. Like,
Dark is also the most sold card on TCG Player this year, which is
No
another
surprise,
Yeah,
to be honest.
So I was looking through that list, top 20 TCG Player selling cards this year, and I don't think Elf or Kit Close were on the list, which is 2 and 3, which is just kind of crazy.
Another thing that
But Dark
blows
was
my
top.
mind is this just speaks to how like often this card's been played. It's beaten out like staples that you play in 3 ofs. You only
It's a
play
lot.
one Dark.
Yep.
That just shows how many people actually purchased this card this year, and like just how many you play it in every deck.
Yep.
That if you can summon it, you'll play it.
that's why I was so surprised at how cheap the Starlight was. Like, first 8 months of the year, Starlights were 150, 250 bucks.
Now they're like
And
a
now they're
grand.
like a grand, yeah.
The-
Shout out to me, selling mine at 400.
Yeah, I hope Elf and Kit were on the list and I missed them, so flame me if I missed them. But Dark is that card. Do we want to go to honorable mentions?
Yeah, I think it's fun.
Let's do it.
First one, probably Runic Fountain. Like, these aren't going to be in any order, but Runic Fountain, it didn't really impact anything when it first came out, and that's probably because it got pushed back 2 months. Shout out to Konami. But the Runic cards itself weren't the best by themselves, but like playing them with Sprite cards made them so much better, which is why we didn't put it in our top 10, because they really relied on the Sprite engine to be a good deck.
And I think something about Runic is it's going to be one of those decks that is viable periodically for a long time.
I can see it.
I think of the decks that came out this year, Runic is going to be that deck that we're going to see popping up at times throughout formats.
Yeah, like if they kill like Sprite and Tier,
Runic's going to be crazy.
Runic's gonna be a really good deck. That's the problem with Runic. If it was like a Sprite format, I think Runic would be played right now. But just like they don't line up well with Tier element.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our next card is kind of similar. Why we didn't put Fountain on the top 10 is Gurua.
Yeah, Gurua, it's TCG exclusive. And a lot of people say that Gurua is the reason why Sprite wasn't the dominant deck here, because OCG didn't have Gurua to give it that push that Tier
Super
had.
Poly target.
Yeah, because everyone thought Sprite was going to be the most dominant deck here. And Gurua gets announced, and everyone jumped on Tier. Because it was like, I mean, that could just be TCG and OCG playstyles, but Gurua gave a lot to the deck. Not even like outside of Super Poly, it just gave you more like extenders to go through with the. At the time, it was Danger Tier was the big thing.
Yep, gives you a Wing Beast Dark target for Curious. It gave you a level 6 for Beatrice. It gives you, the Super Poly target like we said. And also just being able to make Elf and draw a card and get like that advantage back, right? I think is really powerful.
And then for every other deck that's not tier, like they've already said,
Super
Poly Target, which is it's one of the hands down best Super Poly Targets that there is.
if not the best.
And there's also, let's just go with the next honorable mention being Ultimate Slayer. It's a very good card to ditch off Ultimate Slayer. I mean, cards like Ultimate Slayer, it benefits a lot from. And that brings us to our next honorable mention, which is going to be Ultimate Slayer.
Yeah, Ultimate Slayer, I feel like, is one of the strongest cards ever printed. It's just printed at a bad time. Because, the card is so cheap.
Yeah, pick up Ultimate Slayer.
I feel like that card, if it doesn't get reprinted before it goes up, it's going to go up a lot. Because if Elf ever dies out or dies out soon, the card's going to be a lot better.
Yeah, and I think that was a lot of the problem with why it hasn't been seen to play as much. It's just because, if you can't target the monster you want to shuffle back, you can't really play that card.
There's also the tier field spell. If you shuffle something back, it activates.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of the two best decks in the format, it
play around Ultimate Slayer.
Exactly, very well. But Ultimate Slayer getting you that advantage off ditching an extra deck card, which there's a lot of that right now, like Intis, Gurua. There's a lot of cards that
Kikalos.
You can,
Yeah.
Well, no, it's cost. You can't do that.
Oh, well.
There's a
tried.
ton. You can build a whole extra deck for just Ultimate Slayer, which is wild. That one card, Ultimate Slayer, can become a ton of effects. It can become 15 different effects, which is really cool in my opinion. I love the card. It just sucks that it targets.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it could. It would
But if it
be
didn't target, the card would be
insane.
insane.
It would be. But a format in the future where it doesn't matter that it targets, it's gonna be.
It'll be played one day.
crazy
It'll be a
card.
side deck stable at least one day.
100%.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
The thing about Martha. Martha was one of our honorable mentions. I mean, the deck really hasn't done a whole lot, but Martha
win
just gave it
Elysius.
so much. It did. You're right. It did.
Yeah, I think that's an argument for itself why it's on this list. We kind of had Martha and Advent kind of in the same category where that one card really brought their archetype to
From
the
tier 2
forefront.
to
But
a little
I
higher.
think Advent did a lot more for Floowandereeze than it did for Exosister.
And I think that could just be because of the format, at some point, Exorcister could be, top 3 decks easily. But Flu is just so well positioned with D-shifters and all that stuff in the format.
It puts so much pressure on tier right now
Yeah.
that it did a lot more for the format.
Yeah, I think the reason that Floowandereeze is more popular than Exosister is because Exosister doesn't really do anything unfair. They just set up a bunch of banishes and stuff. It's really fair. But Floowandereeze, you completely lock them down. Impen is a floodgate, and barrier statue. Obviously, we all know is just ridiculous.
It's getting banned. It's getting banned.
Maybe. Something that I'm sad that's not in the top 10 because I was really excited for this card to come out was Borland. I think the card's insane, but it just didn't do as much in the format. A lot of people think it's because of Super Poly.
Could have just been too late. Also, I think that's another thing is it took us forever to get Borland, and Dragon Link has been slaughtered here, and somehow players still find a way to play it.
Dragon cards
And
are
you
so
saw
good.
it, at Nats. It took a couple places in the top cut,
5 top cuts.
and then it even topped in Minneapolis.
You did. Shout out Clifton. I think this is probably my top 5 favorite cards of the year, and I'm mention is Illusion of Chaos. I love that engine. I love Magician Souls. That engine's really fun. I can definitely see it in the top 10, but honorable mention's understandable.
Get to combo with some more of the cards in the top 10, right and dark.
Yeah.
Card's
That
crazy.
engine's just so fun to play. I like draw cards. So.
Yeah. We're Yu-Gi-Oh players. We love to draw.
So our next card is one of Isaiah's favorites.
It is.
It's our boy Reggie, Regulus.
See, ABC is probably top 3 favorite decks. And I didn't even play this deck. I didn't play it at all.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of sad about it.
I'm also kind of sad about it. I was thinking about that yesterday. I was like, what decks do I want to play right now? Because I'm trying to take a break from meta decks. I'm about to ask Lou for his Reguluses so I can play some ABC at locals. I think the Regulus engine, Therion engine, was really good. And I think, in my honest opinion, I think the only reason it did so well at a certain point in time is because everyone wanted to play it. I really don't think it was that good. For the format it was in, I think it just pushed decks like ABC to top so many YCSs because so many people wanted to play them.
Oh, yeah. And, I also think that, Regulus is a reason why those cards are so good. I don't think the rest of the cards are that great.
Yep.
The field spell's pretty good, but, Regulus is why the field spell's so good. And I think Regulus will be played even if the rest of the Therions aren't played.
I also think that this engine, it's dying off now, but I think it could pick up. If once Kit and everything gets knocked out, I feel like this deck could pick
Well,
back
in the
up.
next set, there actually is a card that can search Regulus.
Yeah,
so.
see?
And it's an extra deck monster, so
Okay, here we go.
it's a machine too.
And maybe I'll pull the ABC cards back out, guys.
All right, so our last card, our last honorable mention.
This one's for Lou.
This one's for Lou.
Shout
and
out
Noah.
to YCS Minneapolis.
Yep.
Beyond
Beyond.
the pendulum.
This almost didn't get an honorable mention because it's done nothing.
We tried to make something happen.
But the
from it.
card is really good.
The card is
tried.
good,
Yeah, the
and
card's
it
really
definitely helped push Pendulum. And it probably will. It'll always be played in Pendulum. Like
Yeah,
I
I
doubt
mean-
the card ever gets hit.
Like where we don't have Electromite, like if we didn't have Beyond, you couldn't even think about playing
Yeah, not a
pendulum
chance.
before that.
So I definitely think it deserves an honorable mention.
It made one of the previous best decks viable again, like viable at the very least, which I think makes it deserving of a mention.
Yeah, I think I agree. What would you say, top of your head, probably your favorite card release this year is?
Branded Fusion.
Think so?
Yeah, I love Branded. I think that deck, like, you could definitely tell when someone was really, really good with that deck. And when you mastered Branded, I felt like you could just do things that people just normally wouldn't do, and it would just break the deck.
Yeah, I can see that.
Cucumber Horse.
None of you know what that is, probably.
Cucumber Horse is the best card released this year. Yeah, if you don't know why, go do some research. Like,
We actually didn't put it on the top 10 list because we didn't want you to know about it, but
Yeah.
we couldn't keep Luke from
So-
spilling the goo.
sorry. Let
That's
it out of
understandable.
the bag.
I'd probably say Illusion is mine. Like, I don't really like the card art and stuff. I just love playing the card. It was a lot
I mean, the
of
card
fun.
art is sick.
Yeah, but, like, you also got Kaleido Heart. I like
That's true.
Kaleido Heart. I don't know. Maybe Kaleido Heart's my favorite card of the year. I like that card, too.
Well, I think that's the best 10 cards released this year, plus some extras, some
Yeah.
honorable mentions.
If you have any cards that we didn't talk about that you think belong in the top 10 list, let us know below. But I think that's it.
Yeah, make sure you comment your favorite card in the comment section. We'd love to read them.
Yep.
100%. And if you agree that it's Cucumber Horse, like the video. If you disagree that it's Cucumber Horse,
Like
please
it
also
anyway.
like the video
Like
or
it anyway.
dislike it. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.